statewide.
That means you're just used to it.
I don't believe so. It was, if you will, like a race to the top.
Are you able to present the budget?
I don't know. I mean, do you have the materials? Okay. This is all? Okay, I can.
Let me just make
Yeah,
sure.
it's very pithy.
And you Duncan can answer questions if there are questions that Michael
You can
will be
answer
presenting.
questions, just don't want the same person presenting.
Great. So,
This is a follow-up to the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, Mary.
yeah, you might want to just get the numbers out. So, like, he's explaining seeking approval for the actual expenses or 17 and 18. So the numbers. So just say what the numbers are.
Can you share those with me, Duncan?
Yeah, I'll write it.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
And then, and I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
And I mean, you don't have to present the numbers. I think if you're asked them, it's good to have them so that, you know,
Okay.
and then Duncan can answer any questions.
Okay, so I don't have to present unless asked. The numbers, that is.
There is no conversation, it's just
Okay.
the 02401.
Anthony Jordan's first round, BOD said, waiting on the chair.
Oh, wait, disconnect.
I mean, the vice chair.
Disconnect. Again, hold on. Disconnect and connect.
We're waiting on Dan.
Which is fine. It gives him the time to give us some.
It's fine.
Who's that?
For the week?
Oh, no, Anthony.
So I'm actually allowed to vote on this budget.
You're not, you have to vote.
Okay, here we
You're
go.
not allowed to
That's why I'm getting the numbers to present, because I'm not voting.
Beautiful.
What is it?
That's the annual.
Yeah, absolutely.
The budget is the actuals.
Okay.
So that's the amount we're asking for to be approved.
That we're asking to be approved. Here? Okay. Where's that? There we go.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, good morning. Sorry, good afternoon.
Yeah, Duncan Still's gonna
No.
answer questions. Michael will do the presentation for the BODC projects and budgets.
Beautiful.
There. We can't because the city is not there.
Wait on,
That's what I was about to comment.
we're waiting on the city. We can't do anything because you're missing one and the Bronx is missing.
Luis is on his way out.
So we still gotta wait for the city now. And then she had a job for 2 weeks, and now she's up in your neighborhood. She is doing, just text me. Really? Oh, she again?
She's 10 years old. So now in the summer she does all of her actual travel.
Your daughter? Is that come? All right, no, I'm on the board. I'm one of the founding board members.
She's one of the other.
It's a great program. I don't say that because I'm on the board. I mean, I watch kids come out of there, and what made us go to the next level just what can we say? Duncan, what's your title up there?
CFO.
Computer, I mean, you knew that.
So, at the world's best author, I'm like Trump, trying to be friends with Russia. Team, right? Two girls who were, one was on the national team, one was always on the cusp, who were training out in Colorado. They had
I'm on this, what side am I on today? Here?
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
was just was not.
I guess it's okay.
They switch spaces?
You guys. I sort of was thinking just in case they need to confer, but if that way it's fine.
And they wanted
Yep.
Well, I can sit here.
Sure. I'm gonna take this. Can you switch my name plate on purpose? Thank you. How are you? Anthony and Jordan. Hi. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hey, Louis, how are you doing?
You got a bigger water than me.
It's just in Harlem. It's $2 for two.
How are you? Well, thank
Water's
you.
important.
Michael Nixon. Good to see you again.
How are you? Nice seeing you.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
And they weren't willing to cover the whole freight. They were paying for more kids. They exceeded our.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Congratulations on your appointment. I was just talking about you in the elevator.
Thank you, thank you. Looking forward to it. New role.
Do I have a packet?
Let's make sure you get one.
If not, I'll pick it up. I read it from here.
So only way we could charge them was insurance.
One, two, take this one.
I need my book.
Oh, here's right here, let me get it. Is yours written in?
So it was one of those things where like we lost money.
Let me ask you, do we get one always, or should I bring my own?
You should bring your own, because
Okay.
we send it and we don't put them back out.
Okay, fine.
Now, what we can do
If you
Louise,
need
is,
an electronic copy.
we can
No,
send-
I have it. I was just gonna pick it up on
No,
my
what we can
computer.
do is, why don't we do this, just send him an electronic copy and bring his hard copy. That's the easiest way.
Okay.
So we'll send it to you electronically, so you can look at your project,
I have them.
and then when you come here, we'll bring.
Electronically, I have them.
Right. But now,
Still trying to figure out how this works.
after that, we're building a stronger team,
Because I'm
more kids. At that
always
level.
ask me, should I print your copy? I'm like, no, why are we killing more trees?
Right.
I'm sure they're gonna have one.
Hi. Anthony Jordan.
Dan, do you know Louise?
Okay, Kevin, we're about to start. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, the New York Empowerment Zone meeting is going to be chaired by Kevin Eunice, the COO of Empire State Development. Dan Goldstern is the vice chair and representing the city. Kevin?
Thanks, Marion. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the New York Empowerment Zone Corporation for today, Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. As Marion said, my name is Kevin Eunice, and I'll be acting as chair and representing Howard Zemsky and New York State. All meetings of the New York Empowerment Zone directors are public meetings, and members of the public are welcome to ask questions after each presentation. Individuals should limit their comments and questions to the items on the agenda and limit their talking to 2 minutes. Those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes. Following a question and answer period, a motion will be made and a vote will be cast. Before we begin with the substantive portion of today's meeting, I'd like to take a moment and introduce some new faces that are here today. Our newest director, Blair Duncan, the new president of UMES, replaces Ken Knuckles, who retired earlier this month after 15 years with UMES. Welcome, Blair. Sitting in for Marlene Cintron today is BOEDC CFO Duncan Still. Welcome, Duncan. And then also, as Marion said, Dan Goldstern, representing Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, Anthony Jordan, representing Congressman Serrano, and Luis Miranda, representing Congressman Espaillat. I will now ask the directors if anyone has any potential of conflicts of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I would ask that you make an appropriate disclosure at this time. You may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such item or items. Hearing none, the first item on the agenda for approval is of the minutes of the October 24th, 2017 meeting of the directors. Are there any questions or corrections with regard to the minutes? I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Staff from the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation will now present the items proposed by their office. Michael Nixon, would you please present the $350,000 loan to Bronx Create Space?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm here on behalf of Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation for a request for a loan for approval for a loan for $350,000 for a company by the name of Bronx Create Space, which is creating or renovating an industrial building in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx for creating a space for what are referred to as artists and makers to be able to lease space within a building so that these artists and makers will have a stable domicile for their businesses to be able to work. The building is at 15 Canal Place in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. It is currently an industrial space, and the funds would be used to renovate that space and create up to 100, if you will, subspaces of varying sizes for artists and makers. And just for definition purposes, artists are traditional representational artists, meaning photographers, sculptors, painters, also including writers, which are not representational. And then makers would be what I would refer to as artisans, so leather makers, furniture makers, these sorts of artisans to be able to work. The idea behind this is, or actually there are several different economic development aspects to this, or two primary ones. The first one being is that often artists will move into a space, and because of changing rents and other factors, will see their space go up in rent substantially and have to find a new space to live or to move to and to operate. So it creates a space for artists to be able to have a relatively stable place for them to be able to work on their craft. So it helps that segment of the business sector. In a larger sense, these artists and maker spaces have an important role in broader economic development, because by creating a place where artists and makers move to, it's been demonstrated that other businesses over time will come into a particular community and create businesses that will expand upon the artists and makers space that has been created. So essentially, the economic development aspects are twofold. The principal of the business is Mr. Dan Herdoon, and he has a very strong background, both as an artist, having worked with artists and maker spaces in the past, as well as a strong background in real estate. So has a strong background in both of the areas that are really critical to the success of this type of business. Prior to Bronx Create Space, he was a principal or a partner in a business called Brooklyn Brush, which has created now 3 artists and makers spaces in Brooklyn, and all of which have been very successful. So they created a space that was attractive to the artists and makers. Artists and makers have come to the space and created this opportunity for these businesses, but beyond that, seen the development of the communities where these buildings were created, and really helped to plant the seeds for broader economic development in the communities where these spaces have occurred. So he's got a strong background without his direct experience in this type of model. And prior to that experience, he's had strong experience in real estate, project management, development of real estate in a broad range of commercial real estate areas where he's managed many people and many projects. So he understands the real estate component of this, which is important, and he also understands the artistic and creative space of this business, which is important. It's important to note that the total project is about $1,038,000, of which Mr. Herdoon is asking on behalf of Bronx Create Space $350,000. The business has also recently been awarded a grant by New York State for $595,000 for the South Bronx community. So it's already been established that this business is important to the development of the community where it's being located. So between the grant that was awarded of $595,000, an equity investment of about $150,000, including deposits and so on, and then $350,000 that's being requested of the board, it will be able to develop this space and allow this type of business to grow for the artists and for the community at large. So in a nutshell, this is the nature of the business. I will step back and entertain any questions and address any questions that you may have about this.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, thank you.
A question: where are the artists who will be occupying the space we were referred from?
Yeah, many of the artists, one of the important aspects of the development is to support Bronx-based artists. So the principal, Mr. Herdoon, is establishing strong relationships with Bronx artistic institutions, including the Bronx Museum of the Arts and Bronx Council on the Arts and other Bronx institutions to make an active search for Bronx artists to occupy the various studios that will be in the space. Will it be entirely Bronx artists? Probably not. And in fact, what's anticipated is as the L train will be shut down, I believe, starting next year, many of the artists in some of the Brooklyn spaces with which he was previously associated, who are Bronx-based, will be looking to move closer to home because of the situation that might be arising from that. So it won't be even necessarily Bronx artists that are currently in the Bronx. It might be Bronx artists that are outside of the Bronx, but it'll include Bronx artists that are in the Bronx, Bronx artists that may not have found a suitable space up to now in the Bronx, but who are Bronx-based, where they live and so on, and then other artists as well.
So this loan, right,
Yes.
will support the current proposal or grant that's been awarded from the state to support workspace for artists who will be located in the Bronx and potentially those who already live in the Bronx, and we're partnering with Bronx institutions to ensure that we're working as much as possible to ensure that this. My concern is that whether or not how are we supporting artists that are already in the Bronx who are looking for spaces to do to expand on their work, and
Right.
so I just wanted to learn more about where these artists are coming from.
Sure.
And what the state and what the grant that you mentioned, the state, what is it? Is there any conditions to also identify more artists who are coming from the Bronx? Or you're not aware?
I'm not aware, but I don't believe the grant specifically has that request. What has been requested and which the principal has shown a strong interest in doing is making the space as Bronx-centric as possible.
Right.
He wants to be thoroughly involved in the Bronx community. There's several ways that he's going to do that. Establishing strong ties with Bronx-based arts institutions, so Bronx Museum of the Arts, Bronx Council on the Arts, and some other Bronx-based arts institutions. Or working closely with our organization, Bronx Overall Economic Development
Right.
Corporation, where we feel strongly that there must be a significant component of Bronx artists who reside in the space, and then working, and then his own enthusiasm in making it a Bronx established or a Bronx, a strongly Bronx aspect of a facility that has a lot of Bronx-based artists. So the stakeholders, Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, the principal, all want this to be Bronx, have a strong Bronx focus. Also, part of the space that's being renovated will be a cafe space, a public space, which will be open to the public as well as to the businesses that will reside there. And the intention is to have a Bronx-based vendor who will operate, if you will, sublease the space and operate it, and also bring their aspect of the Bronx to it.
And that's my final question is about the creation of jobs. Because right now I'm looking at 3.
Yes, it's
more?
anticipated there will be 2 to 3 jobs created through the cafe that will be located there, and 2 to 3 jobs excluding the principal for the Bronx Create space as well, and that's just to start.
Did we know the income or the salaries for those jobs?
I don't recall the salary of the principal. I don't know the salary of the if you will, the real estate management person who's going to be on board.
Right.
There also will be a maintenance person who will help maintain the facility, the physical facility, as well as what they refer to as a chief creative officer. And I do not know currently exactly what the salaries are, but I think they'll be relatively competitive.
Thank you very much.
Michael,
Yes.
the grant, the $595,000 grant, who's that coming from?
It's coming from the state of New York. I don't know the exact agency, but I can tell you that it is part of what is referred to as the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. of which
Okay.
the South Bronx received a total of $10 million. This
That's
was
a CSD.
okay, right.
Yeah.
And it was a competitive statewide of which the Bronx was
we know
one
the
of the awardees.
It's our program.
Okay, very good.
And then my other question, Michael, is the space, the artisans, will they be actually doing sales in this space, or will they? Sorry, the energy efficiency of the lighting. Will there actually be sales, or is this simply the space where they will make their wares?
Both. There will be the artisan maker spaces, which we can, let's say, look at as studios, if you will, for them to actually create whatever art or artistic work that they're involved with. There will also be on the ground floor public spaces, which will include galleries, which the artists and artisans can use if they wish. There is no requirement to do so, to be able to sell their art through there and so on. And there will be public spaces that will help facilitate that. There will also be an e-commerce component to the environment to allow for transactions of the artists there at the space if they wish, but it doesn't preclude them from being able, or if they wish, to go to an outside gallery or other sales environment.
Good. Any other questions for Michael?
Michael, what's the amount of equity capital that's being put forth by the organization here?
It would be a little bit under 15% if you were to look at the total expenditures. Their equity injection would be $150,000, some of which is to acquire the space and so on, and then also into some of the leasehold improvements. But they've pledged $150,000.
And how much has gone into date?
That I do not know. I'm not quite sure, honestly.
Who owns the space currently?
I don't know who owns the space currently. It's in the middle of a transaction, and the minority partner will be purchasing the space. So it will be owned by the minority partner, Mr. Saul Maslavi.
So he owns the property, then he has 50% and
15.
I'm sorry?
15%.
15%.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
And the business that will be located there.
Yes, that's correct.
And so then the business will be paying.
It will be paying the entity that will own the building, which will be owned by this minority partner. Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Motion for second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The $350,000 loan to Bronx Create Space has been approved.
Thank you.
I'm not. My notes say Duncan still will be presenting, but I think someone else is presenting the BOEDC budgets for fiscal years 17 and 18.
Yes, that is myself, Michael Nixon, again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I will just make a brief statement, and then between myself and Duncan, answer any questions that may arise. BOEDC is seeking approval of actual expenses for fiscal years 2017 and 2018. I'm told that the actual expenses can be seen on tabs 3 and 4 respectively. And it should be noted that the expenses in fiscal
Michael,
year...
would you please present each budget separately? There are two different items for action.
Okay, yes.
So tab 3 will need to be presented and voted upon, and tab 4 will need to be presented and voted upon.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for fiscal year 2017, BOEDC is requesting approval for expenses of an amount of $649,724.08. And these are actual expenses for fiscal 2017.
I'm sorry, did anything you want to say about those other than that, Michael? Anything noteworthy?
The Lord budget.
Yeah, these are actual amounts for the year. I believe that reflect all of the expenses that have been incurred by BOEDC for the fiscal year, and asking, if you will, for approval for those expenses.
So I think we're going to present the second item as well with the next year's budget, and then we'll do one vote. If there are there questions on this item?
Yeah, right.
So questions are the contract services only because positions haven't been filled yet for 2017?
The contracted costs.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a vacancy of a CFO, and they got a contractor in to fill that. That's why the contracted costs were high, and one of the reasons why the personnel costs were low. There were also other vacancies in staff.
Do you know what the vacancies were? What the number of vacancies were?
The
for
executive
2017?
director was a vacancy, and one of the staff accountants. No, that year it wasn't. Just mainly executive director and the CFO.
Any further questions on this? If not, Michael, you want to present the next year's budget?
Sure. So on tab 4 for fiscal year 2018, the expenses, and these again are actual expenses, are $500,666.65. And I will simply note that, as you can see, these expenses are lower for fiscal 2018 than they were for fiscal 2017. This relates to vacancies, and therefore lower expenses in fiscal year 2018.
Are the vacancies still the same?
No, the CFO vacancy was filled in October.
Right.
The other two vacancies are the same, though.
The ED and the CFO?
Yeah, it's the Empire Zone director. Yeah.
Do we have an idea? Is that public? Like, is being currently a search firm
Yes.
or something for look for those positions?
We're actively
Yes.
looking now.
The budget is presented, the variance budget is presented against 16 as was 17. Is there a reason we don't use 17 numbers, or is that just because we haven't approved 17?
Because it wasn't approved. That was why. Because that number hadn't been approved yet. That's the reason.
And I have to say, the way that you presented it with regard to the percentage change, it's very confusing to me, at least. It looks like a positive is a negative is a positive. I saw a 420% decrease in an item, and I thought, I don't think you can decrease an item more than 100%. But it just it led me to be a little bit confused about your budget.
I do agree, but it's just the template that was used.
Are there any other questions on these items? If not, I'll entertain a motion of approval for both items.
Another question: Does it mean that BODC is currently in compliance, or all accounting, financial reporting?
I believe so. Yeah. We're up to date on audits and state reporting.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. The budgets for fiscal year 17 and 18 for BOEDC have been approved. I will now ask Ghaffar Mohammed to present the UMES administrative budget for fiscal year 2019.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Ghaffar Mohammed, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Development Corporation. And if you were to flip to tab 5, that's where we have our combined administrative budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 in the amount of $3,910,635. This budget is completely funded from loan repayments. But first, comparing 2018 budget with 2018 projected amounts, you will notice, and that's on the last line of the page, that we had projected a budget for $3,836,478, and we came in at $3,564,691. That's a $271,787 below budget, or 7%, for the year 2018. Please note that significant variations are in the following. Under line 2, personnel services, you will notice that we had budgeted $2,876,129, and we're coming in at $2,450,284. That's a savings of $425,845, or 15% below budget. And that's because we had some vacancies, and we're in the process of filling those positions. As a result of those vacancies, I would like to direct you to line 28 of our expenses. And you'll notice under temporary services and other consulting, we went over budget by $140,000, but that's because we had those vacancies. We had to bring in some temp consulting. Next, I would like to direct you to line 26. Our legal expenses went over budget by $38,597 because of some legal costs incurred on loan initiatives and collection efforts from delinquent borrowers. The savings on the collections we've made from those delinquent borrowers are more than compensated for that extra $38,000 that we spent on legal fees. On line 38, we had a savings. Line 30, liability insurance, we came in under budget by $9,625 below the premium because for the last few years we've never had a claim, and so our premium keep reducing. Those were the significant variations in the budget for FY18. And now I would like to move over to the budget for 2019. And if you were to compare the bottom, in 2018 we had budgeted $3.8 million. For 2019 we were asking for $3,910,635. And that's about $74,000 higher than last year, which is less than 2% increase. It translates to about 1.9%. All of that increase is really because on the personnel services, again, on the line 2, last year our budget was $2,876,129, and this year we are asking for $2,945,286. That's an increase of $69,000, which translates to a 2%, and we would like to give our staff a cost of living increase for that 2%. And that accounts for the total increase in our budget. All other expenses down at the bottom, total non-personnel services, you'll notice that last year it was $960,000, and this year it's $965,000, a small 5,000 increase. That's our budget, and now I'm prepared to answer questions, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Gafar. Any questions from the directors?
So the increases only relate to staffing pieces, or
You're not committed.
not going to answer questions? Okay. Maybe I could pass a note to someone else to ask a question for me.
I'll echo that question. That exact question.
I think he did say that, okay.
Yeah, you said that right.
It's because we want to give our staff, to retain our staff. We have a number of young people, and we would like to retain them. And
Great.
considering inflation, we think a 2% cost of living adjustment is reasonable.
Any further questions? Any questions from the public? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The UMES administrative budget for 2019 has been approved. With that, our corporate secretary, Marion Phillips, will now present the New York Empowerment Zone Corporation administrative budget for fiscal year 2019. Marion.
Thank you, Kevin.
Keep my head down.
Thank you, Kevin. Allow me to present tab 6 to the directors. It's the New York Empowerment Zone Corporation budget for fiscal year 2019. The budget is $634,125, which is approximately an increase of about $2,800 from the previous year. Our increases were more internal as it relates to our accounting, our legal fees internal to ESD. ESD basically prorates all of its subs based on office spacing, things of that sort. But our audit went up slightly, and our insurance went up slightly, which came to that number. There's one correction where it says 4 salaries. It's really 3.5 salaries. My salary is a half a salary baked to this here. Always remember that under city and state, it says on the personnel side, well, let's just look at the bottom. On the grant total for city and state is $256,376. Always understand that 135 is from the city and 135 is from the state, so you subtract that. So the total always subtracts 270, but the total budget that must be allocated or approved is $634,125,000. Any questions?
Not from me.
I appreciate that, Mr. Eunice.
Sure.
And I asked them, they promised me they wouldn't ask questions either.
All right. Well, if there are no questions from the directors, are there any questions from the public? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
Slow.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The New York Empowerment Zone Corporation administrative budget for fiscal year 2019 has been approved. Is there any other business?
There is one information item under tab 7, which is designations from Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone. The Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Board had taken action to de-designate $1.8 million, a little over $1.8 million of dollars from the Cultural Industry Investment Fund. These are projects that were funded from 1998 to current that have either been not used or all the funds were not used. And so this is Upper Manhattan making a report to the directors that these funds have been de-designated, meaning that these funds may go back into pool of resources to be reallocated by Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone and approved by the New York Empowerment Zone directors. I'm not sure if you all want to raise any questions with Blair, but those are the designations that have been brought forward.
Thank you, Marion. Marion, I guess I would like to note here that I just noticed when I presented the BOEDC items, I failed to ask if there were questions from the public. Maybe I should provide that opportunity now on the BOEDC items, that if there are members of the public who would like to ask any questions with regard to those items, they do so.
There are no members of the public present.
All right, I just wanted to make sure we provided that opportunity and to make sure we didn't jeopardize the validity of our board meeting in case that was an issue.
You want to do open mic?
None.
There are no comments from the public, Kevin.
Great. All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, folks.
So,
That's not that one.
Okay, that is hilarious. There was a screen. Okay.
Oh, here's the things. I left them in here.
It was just kind of funny because she was sitting there and looked like, is she taking her phone? All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.